We are embarking on a work session from now till 6 with our Eagle County Commissioners. And we begin by thanking you profusely for coming over, dodging the rocks and making it through the canyon, getting over here. So we know it's not a short drive, but we appreciate you coming. And so I'm just going to do quick around the horn introductions. Our county commissioners, Kathy Chandler Henry, Jeannie McQueenie, Matt Shear. On council, we have Dieter Schindler and David Knight. Elise, she'll always correct me. I will say Elise Huddle, and
You did it.
good 4 years.
You got it, now retire.
And myself. And thank you guys again. And I want to just take a second to acknowledge Jeannie McQueenie, who just has cycled off as chair of RAFTA. And I just think some special acknowledgement is in order, because she just did a whale of a job as chair of that. We went through some interesting stuff and had because we did a 4-year succession planning process, which has never been done before. It's usually like 6 weeks. This was 4 years because it was so delicate. She did a masterful job of navigating through all that, and we really appreciated having her as chair. And it was another, as I said coming in, Jeannie lives farthest away, but was always there first. It was a tough one, and we had some of us in the Roaring Fork Valley that would attend virtually, and Jeannie was there every time. So we're indebted for all that great service. She deserves acknowledgement, so thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
For that. Okay, so the first order of business on our end, we wanted to,
I think Matt
oh, sorry, Matt.
wanted to make a quick announcement.
Sorry, I was just bulldozing ahead there.
No, I feel like I'm the witness too. So from the witness table, we just want to remind everybody too, a week from this Friday, is it the 22nd? Is our, so we do ski with the electeds days. We do them on our 3 main mountains on Vail, Beaver Creek. And Snowmass isn't our mountain, but it is for our Roaring Fork community. So we'll be doing that, hopefully with a lot of you. I know it's tougher for you guys during the middle of the day, but that's why we live here. So we hope you'll join us. It's 10 to noon about that we'll be actually skiing at Snowmass. The community's all invited. Actually, Snowmass is one of the biggest crowds that we get for our Ski with the Elected. So, and it's a mountain we hardly ever get to ski, so we're excited about it. But we hope you'll all join us.
How do we find you?
We meet just at the gondola, at the bottom of the gondola. So at 10, and then ski, and then lunch.
10 o'clock meetup?
Yeah.
Yep.
Very good. And what date again? Would we?
It's Friday the 22nd, I think you're right.
A week from Friday, one way or the other, whatever that date is. Feel free to get early for some warm-up runs. I'm hoping we'll make it. But yeah, we hope we'll see some of you there.
Or for lunch?
Or for lunch, which follows
Which I
immediately
did
after.
last year.
Okay,
We're good.
Good to go then? Okay, first on our agenda, we wanted to make sure you were up to speed on what has become a very, it's not controversial, it's been difficult, but I think good things are coming of it. We have completed our first round of sketch plan review for the Black Mountain Jadwin development proposal, which has resulted in a project which is 50% deed restricted affordable housing and 50% kind of what we're calling RO in this valley, so it's a resident occupancy restriction. The details of that RO restriction are in progress. We have a term RO, they have one called first tracks, and they're not exactly the same, so we got some work to do down the road. David's kind of shepherding that through. So
Where is that, Bill?
Well, we're
we're gonna have a little presentation.
yeah, okay.
So Michelle Tebow's gonna kind of tell you what's going on here, but it's kind of import to Eagle County because it's right on boundary, and it's kind of underlines why the urban growth boundary is such an important thing in this community. So Michelle, you want to?
James is gonna,
I'm actually going to pass it over to James because he's.
Oh, okay, great, James, thanks.
Official, then you'll hear me talk plenty afterwards.
Yeah.
Thank you. As an update, the Jadwin sketch plan was approved by the council here last month. The property is about a 9-acre property, and it's located just to the west of the post office, Basalt Post Office. So the post office is right here where my cursor is, and then there's one other property between the post office and the Jadwin property. And so this is the Jadwin property. It's in the town's urban growth boundary, and the applicant group submitted a sketch plan application that includes an annexation request to the town, and the town reviewed it over a series of public hearings. I think we had 4 at the council level, and we had multiple hearings at the Planning and Zoning Commission level. They proposed originally 70-plus dwelling units, as well as 12 rental cabins, short-term rental cabins. And they originally proposed some glamping pads in the open space area close to the river. You can see the Roaring Fork River is located right here, adjacent to the boundaries of the property. So they went through a pretty significant sketch plan process and ultimately revised the project down to 64 dwelling units and 12 short-term rental cabins. All of the glamping pads that they had proposed in the open space area were removed from the application through the process to reduce some of the impacts on the open space and riparian area. The amount of affordable housing, as Bill alluded to, went up significantly during the process to 50% of the dwelling units are now, as part of the sketch plan, deed restricted. And they've got a mix of kind of categories and AMI levels that they're proposing to hit with those units. They did a lot of work with a lot of the Mid-Valley employers like the Basalt Fire District, as well as, the Roaring Fork Fire District, in the school district, and some of the other nonprofit entities in the Mid-Valley, and kind of partnered up with them to come up with a better housing solution than they originally proposed. And so, you know, generally, the project was pretty consistent with the future land use map that we have in the 2020 Basalt Master Plan, which includes residential on a good portion of the property, and then some kind of short-term rental scenario, and then a good deal of open space adjacent to the river and the riparian area. So their plan was basically right on in terms of consistency with the future land uses that were designated in the master plan. They also are required, as part of the sketch plan, to do some intersection improvements, especially to the slip lane intersection, which is near the project, as well as to add some lanes for turning on Emma Road adjacent to the post office to meet queuing requirements. So, you know, generally, it was consistent with the master plan, and they bumped up the affordable housing considerably, and so the sketch plan was approved. They still do have some details to work through, obviously, in the preliminary plan and final plan applications. So they've got 2 more rounds of review with P&Z and council. But council was accepting of the concept. I'm happy to go into more detail, or if you have questions on where they're at or what's entailed in the project, I'd be happy to answer those, or if council has comments on it as well.
I might just add in that this is one of the few remaining properties that's outside of the town boundaries, but inside our urban growth boundary. So the application for this was more palatable because it is in our urban growth boundary and not outside.
Now, what were the AMIs? I couldn't quite read them
yeah,
there.
sorry. The AMIs, they've got like 12% at Category 2, which is 100% of AMI. They've got 25% at Category 3, which is 120% of AMI. And then they've got another 25% at 150% of AMI, and then another 13% at 200% of AMI. And then, as Bill mentioned, on the market rate portion of the project, they've proposed to make those units available to local working residents for the first 90 days that they're offered for sale, which is something new to Basalt. We haven't really had that in our program before.
Thanks. I think what the project sort of brings into focus is the classic conflict between land conservation and development. And in this instance, while the site has lots of environmental attributes and qualities, it also has some real challenges. I think we've just kind of come down on the side that it's zoned for multifamily housing. It's in our urban growth boundary, and the housing thing is just at the precipice right now. So we just want to make sure you're up to speed on that one. So, any questions, discussion?
Thank you.
All right. Next item is the eligible intersection improvements. Ben, you want to tell us what's going on there? So happy to see there's finally a solution for this.
Hopefully, yeah. This has been one of those projects that we've been working on for most of my 16 years at the county. So, I guess by way of background, the issues at the Elgibel intersection are where Valley Road comes in, right where the cursor is I can't remember the exact distance, but it's too close to Highway 82 for appropriate queuing, and we're at the limits of our access permit with CDOT for Highway 82. And in order to get a new access permit, we need to make improvements to increase that stacking distance for cars waiting at the signal. In 2014-ish, there was a group that looked at this intersection and came up with a preferred alternative that kind of routed the secondary intersection towards the roundabout at the county building and built a new roundabout in the parking lots. And as we worked through some of those issues and how we were going to fund that, there was a proposal for phasing that project, and it didn't really work unless the whole thing was built. And it highlighted that the majority of traffic is coming from Willits City Market area, and we were taking all that traffic out of route to go through a roundabout and then come back to the intersection. It just didn't seem very efficient and was also a very expensive project. I think it was $4 million in 2014, so much more than that today. So we were looking for a way to simplify that construction project and alternative solutions to that. So we started looking at when the Rafta Park and Ride was built. You can see there's basically a road that was built that connects with East Valley Road, right there. And the idea of connecting that piece of roadway to West Valley Road and opening up, moving that intersection about 750 feet from the signal and creating adequate queuing.
So I could have changed the intersection.
Plan.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard to tell exactly without an aerial behind it, maybe, but so we'll be able to add some spaces to the park and ride with the project. And the kind of dashed line where your cursor just was, it's just showing that there's a potential that we could expand, or Rafta could expand parking quite a bit more. Right now, there's 82 spaces at the park and ride. I think we're increasing it to about 93, and if they expanded that parking, it would be up to about 180. So a significant expansion of parking for park and ride, which is needed. The sort of downside to, well, not downside, but one of the concerns of RAFTA was they really wanted to try to move East Valley Road to wrap around the park and ride, so pedestrians didn't have to cross Valley Road to get to the bus stop on 82. It just got really complicated, and there wasn't a good way to do that and still have that queue distance that we needed. So we are proposing the road to stay where it is, but we would add speed tables likely to keep traffic calming, and there's currently RFBs there now. They would stay, or we would put new ones in to replace them. So
You said RFBs?
rapid rectangular flashing beacons, RRFB.
Oh, they already have that.
Yeah. So we're currently about 30% design for this. We've worked with CDOT, RAFTA, Cypress Village neighborhood. We've talked to some of the town of Basalt staff, and are starting to move forward with finishing that design. One of the big questions right now that's sort of critical path is the park and ride was built with FTA funds. So depending on right-of-way and things like that, we may have to go through an FTA process, which would slow things down. But we're hopeful that we can just do some sort of easement agreement that wouldn't require an exchange of property that would complicate that. So that's sort of where we're at.
So
Happy
if
to
somebody's
answer any
coming,
questions.
excuse me, if somebody's coming off of 82 to go to Crown Mountain Park, they're going around this?
Correct. They're coming to the intersection, the new intersection, and would go around the park and ride to get back to the park.
And there's no like bypass that just goes around the corner?
No.
Seems like that's actually putting additional traffic on the road. Because that means everybody that's coming up Valley, or no, up Valley to go to Crown Mountain Park is then forced in and around the park and ride. Correct?
Correct.
And I think wasn't part of that was
With you there.
the
Counterintuitive.
part of it, I think, is simply the land area that they have to work with. I think what you see there today is trying to meet the best of both worlds with, splitting the traffic into an up valley, down valley situation. But the problem with that is if anybody wants to do any land use action, there's zero vehicle trips remaining as far as CDOT is concerned. So this would allow for additional development to occur, whether, a few years ago, I think we had City Market in looking to do a gas station, and they weren't able to do that. And whether we want that or not is immaterial, but I think it's just a matter of that we're in a tight spot. So this design, instead of pushing the people that want to go to and from City Market area out of the way, you are having to have the people that would go towards Crown Mountain Park be more inconvenienced. So it's a trade-off, I think, but.
Yeah, we're at the point with CDOT that there's been multiple ideas that have come from Crown Mountain for expanding services, but we can't even expand services beyond what they're already providing there currently because of the access permit.
What happens with the parking? I mean, does that get, is that just illustrative of how the entire lot will be reconfigured, or what's
Correct.
going to happen there?
Yeah, so the shaded area is the existing parking, and the boulder area is the new parking that we'll construct with this project, and then the dashed lines are, potential for additional parking that could be added if RAFTA wanted to with this project or in the future.
And so Crown Mountain is involved in these conversations?
Not necessarily directly. I mean, I know they're working on a PUD amendment to restructure their PUD, but we're communicating with them on what our plan is, but they're not involved in the process necessarily.
And has some community outreach been done yet?
We're planning to do a couple, or at least one public meeting to talk about the change from the 2014 process, but and show this plan. Yeah, so probably in the next month or two we'll do that.
Did you guys communicate with Soper's Village though?
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
HOA?
Mhm.
No.
What's the estimated cost on this one?
I'm not quite sure at this point, but less than 4 million, I'm hoping.
4 million was the 2016 dollars
Yeah.
too, so.
So, back to Elisa's point, so if you are headed to Crown Mountain Park from Basalt, your choices are to exit Highway 82 at the Willits Light, and then come up the frontage road, basically past City Market, hook a left turn there, and then travel on over to the Eagle County Building and to Crown Mountain Park. Or, if you really want to have some fun, you could continue up to the signal, turn left, and then loop back around and
Well, or you could turn into the frontage road by, I don't know what that street's called, but by the Alpine Animal Hospital.
Across from
Yeah.
oh yeah.
But that also means that all of that housing development that is on I don't know the names of any of these roads, but across from Crown Mountain Park,
Cypress Village.
Valley Road.
East Valley Road, yeah, is gonna end up having to do this.
Yeah. Yeah, it looks like it might be tempting to do a quick cut across from the new road segment there to the new road segment that goes to the park. So you don't have to loop all the way around the parking lot, but I'm pretty sure that's too close to the intersection to have another intersection. That's just basically teeing back up that which we have right now.
Correct.
Yeah.
I mean, we could ask CDOT about, like you said, a slip lane for just inbound traffic, possibly, I guess. It would, it would have to go like sort of in the middle of that or future parking area, but something we can explore.
Well, this improves the functionality of the intersection, and I think, the travelers will kind of get over this. They'll figure it out. But there'll be some letters.
Oh,
Some strongly worded letters. As the Basalt community
So,
likes.
Guys, what's our thinking schedule-wise on all this?
I think we'll have the plans mostly done this year. It'll just depend on that right-of-way question of whether we have that resolved. So the hope is that it would be a 2025 project, but that'll depend on right-of-way.
We're not going to complete this before April 2nd. That's kind of a date around here. Well, thanks, Ben.
Yep.
It's helpful to see. Okay, housing update. Michelle and Tori are going to talk about this.
Unless you want to be
Basalt program ideas and update on parcel 5. I have to just say something. I got 3 or 4 calls this week, and we basically have described parcel 5 as rugby field, and a lot of the residents in that area thought we were proposing that we're going to build on the rugby field.
Oh,
And it caused some real consternation out there. So I said, I'm sure that's not the case. I think it's just nomenclature here for parcel. I thought it was parcel 9. I guess it's parcel 5.
It is.
It's parcel 9, yeah.
Yeah, that was my mistake. There's so many numbers
okay.
are 2E and 9.
That's the reason we've been
Parcel
describing it
5 to
as
9.
adjacent to the rugby field.
Yeah,
Rugby adjacent.
yeah, rugby adjacent. That's more appropriate.
Maybe we'll figure out a name for the housing
Oh,
development.
cool.
that's
Okay,
like
well, we know where it is now.
term.
That's
Okay. All right, so, well, I'm gonna walk you through our 3 town-owned projects that we have going forward. Isn't this fun? Well, it's parcel 2E, which is across from Taka, the rugby field adjacent project, and then our 4 lots at Stotts Mill. And so these are pretty rough numbers. Let's see here. We'll start with, well, we'll just go through the slides because that'll be faster. So the first one is parcel 2E, which is across the street from Taka on Lewis Lane. It's about 2.5 acres. It's in a PUD, and this property has been identified for a child care center and affordable housing in our master plan. We did just get awarded a DOLA grant for $200,000 for planning and engineering on the site in partnership with Eagle County. So you're helping us with the matching grants for that. What we'll be doing is going through and seeing what fits on there for a child care center, and then maximizing what will work for affordable housing, and what the community will stand there. We'll put that RFP out for consultant teams in probably late April, early May. We're pretty up to our gills right now with the other RFPs. But this will just go through planning, and the goal is to get through design and entitlements so that we can be competitive for construction grants and partnership funding. So we don't anticipate any construction happening on this until at best 2025, but we're charging ahead with that as our goal. So the constraints on this property are that there are wetlands that are adjacent to the existing homes. At the bottom there, there is an established neighborhood, so they may be supportive or not of density on this project. And then we just really don't have the money to build it, so we really have to get creative on how to do that. So that's an age-old story, but that one's really exciting, and obviously this is in a section of Eagle County here. That's Willets Lane to the left, and this is near 3 blocks from Whole Foods. So more to come on that. That one's really exciting, and that's something I've been working with, just general discussions with Tori and Sam on the child care aspects there.
It's kind of humorous that the housing and children are deemed to be incompatible uses there. It's true, but kind of ironic.
So yeah, something about that.
So there you go, rugby
There you
adjacent.
go. So here's our rugby adjacent lot. And this, we've been looking at options for this property for some time now. We have an RFP out right now with proposals due on March 16th. Which is coming right up. We're looking at 12 plus units here. This is a similar status where we are looking to get a design and land use entitlements here. It's a PUD amendment. And then we'll be trying to get creative for funding and go into construction in 2025. We anticipate that this one will go faster just because it's smaller, it's a little more straightforward, not being mixed use. It should be a little bit quicker. And it may end up or not looking like this scheme that was done in 2017, I think. Is that right? Yeah. Also in Eagle County, just in case you were wondering.
And have you received Proposition 123 funding, or that's where you're going to look?
That's where we're looking, and so that's the kind of the directive we're following, is that without the entitlements and the design in place, we're not competitive for the funding. So I think the planning and the engineering funding grant that we got for the other project was Prop 123 funding. So we're in the pipeline, and we're going to set ourselves up as much. They have told us, and you may already know this, but that we're much more competitive when we have partners. So even if it's a small partner or a big partner, the fact that we had Eagle County as our partner for the planning and engineering fund on the other property elevated us really quickly, which was neat and
That's
kind of
good to
surprising. Well, I
Not
figured
just
that,
partners,
but yeah, that was part of the deal. So that's that one. And then what we have out right now, we have 7 proposals in, and we'll be going forward with construction this year. The town owns 4 lots in Stotts Mill over by the high school. We're pursuing construction on 2 of those lots, and then we'll figure out the phasing for the last 2 in the future. This neighborhood is sort of a naturally occurring affordable housing area, if you will, because these are small, narrow lots, although that's all subject because everything, as we know, that's not deed restricted and category increases significantly. These are specific for town employees for recruitment and retention. So we've gotten so far bids that include modular, stick-built, and a whole range of pricing to boot, which will be interesting. So, but that'll be a good gut check for us on where the market is right now and what we can get done in Basalt for cost per square foot. And then the last housing piece I have is not a project, but is something that our citizen committee, the Basalt Affordable Community Housing, our BAC Commission, is looking at, and this is something you guys already do, which is the Deed Restriction Incentive Program. BAC is moving forward with making a recommendation on that sort of program to Town Council, so that'll be coming back to you guys soon. But we've been looking at all of the existing programs that exist. We've been looking at Eagle, of course, Vail, Breckenridge, Avon, Summit County, all of those things. And so we're just trying to figure out our priorities for that and what our appetite is for that. Unlike a lot of the other established communities that have this program already, the town of Basalt does not have a recurring funding mechanism for affordable housing. So we're going to need to be strategic about how much we set aside, what the community thinks about it, and kind of use it as a pilot program to figure out long-term funding. So, but we're excited, and kind of everything that goes out for that, people are really excited. We have a lot of existing homes that we'd like to maintain that have workforce in them. So, as you guys well know, just trying to resist those pressures. So, and that might be something, just putting this out there. You probably know this already, but Breckenridge and Summit County pair up on priority properties together in their deed restriction program. So Summit County will give a certain amount, Breckenridge will give a certain amount, and then they can afford the more expensive properties that are in closer to downtown or such and whatnot. So we may come back with that recommendation to Eagle County. We'll see. If you're interested.
Okay.
That's the affordable housing spiel.
Right. I think what you mentioned about keeping existing housing in the hands of workforce is really critical. And it's also, none of it's inexpensive, but that's certainly less expensive than building new units if we can keep a house in a worker house. So we've been having some good luck with the deed restrictions. We're also starting a new program to pay people to rent long-term locals rather than short-term and pay some incentives. So that's new, but we have some high hopes for that too.
That's a great idea. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's like many of our programs is available in incorporated and unincorporated areas.
So we'll be doubling down.
But I found that interesting too, because in your annexation project, I can't remember the name of it, but specifically in there is approvals for short-term rentals, which is always interesting to see, and everybody else is all, has a lot of consternation about short-term rentals. But David and I were just talking too, Basalt is a unique situation too. You have very few beds relative to the economy, so those beds make more sense for you than it might say for an Avon or a Vail or Minturn.
In that application too, the language is a little bit funny because the short-term rentals are, the master plan went back and forth between having a small hotel use there,
Yeah.
and then the nomenclature went over to short-term rentals. So that I would describe them more as, the units are specific, more like a hotel use.
Right.
And it's not the housing units that you can short-term rent.
Yeah, guest accommodation,
Right.
whatever you
Slice
need
and
it to
dice them
be.
each direction, yeah.
Yeah.
So housing's underway. I think it's going to be a kind of surprising week. Thursday at RAFTA, we're going to get EPS kind of housing need forecast. So it has all sort of probability of being like another one of those meetings where, okay, we need 4,000 units, and we'll say, well, we have 4 that we're doing.
Right.
It's like,
Yeah.
but
It's-
you know,
You got to do something.
you got to keep going. You can,
That was also what Dave and I were talking about too, is this idea that everybody's like, what are you going to do to solve housing? Like, we can't solve housing. Of those, say, 4,000 units or whatever, you can't presume that the government's going to provide them all. We want to facilitate and try to get, I mean, ideally, the private market provides most of those, and as many as possible. So it's, we're aware of all those and providing some, part of the team.
is Pitkin County, did I read correctly that have committed to funding some buy down
Yes.
action?
They have verbally committed to funding, I think, 2 million.
It's a start, huh?
But everyone needs to contribute. It can't just be one community or it won't be enough, as we know.
Yeah.
And I know Tori is our resiliency director too, and I don't know if you have anything to add in. If not, just wave, Tori, whatever. Tori's out.
No, Michelle did a great job of sort of outlining all the conversations we've had and the partnerships that we've discussed. And I think in the town's hands, those projects are moving forward. And I think the Eagle County will, when we're ready, I think we can have the longer, bigger, more partnership conversations. And we're looking forward to that.
Yeah, we should emphasize, because there's always that strange thing. The county has sometimes authorities exclusively in unincorporated Eagle County and sometimes across the whole county. And this is one of those where we are very much looking to be partners with everybody.
Yeah.
Exciting.
Yeah, I mean, I think that if we pursue this as we are from so many different angles, the Regional Housing Coalition are harnessing basically the private sector as Black Mountain and Jadwin represent. I mean, that's 64 units of full-on affordable housing, community housing. We could split hairs about the definition, but basically every unit is relevant to the housing need in the valley. It's not appealing to folks that want to come and demand more services. These are all service provider type folks that are going to live there. So that's, we've got the regional coalition, which is going to be funding, and buy down looks like the most efficient route there. Then we have harnessing the private sector with our development regulations. Then we have our own efforts, which, we've got $6 million from approval in the bond issue, and we can leverage that with more money and more deals. And so I think there's cause to be optimistic over the long haul. It's just, how do you get from here to there? That's what we all face. Anything else on this one?
I don't think so.
Cool.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you so much. So Stotts Mill and childcare is another cool project. It's actually bricks and mortar working.
Yeah. So this is over by the high school. The space was exacted as part of the PUD approvals. And it is a 4,000 square foot child care center. Picken County and the town of Basalt partnered together on a employer-based daycare grant. And we're awarded that maximum amount of $800,000. Picken County contributed the required matching funds of $250,000, and the town of Basalt the remaining $50K plus project management. And then on the next slide, so it's 4 classrooms, infant room, toddler rooms, 2 toddler rooms, and a preschool room. 58 plus students if every room fills up. So this is just huge and really exciting. We have a provider there, Blue Lake Preschool, who's ramping up and ready to move in once it goes. The building is a shell and has to be built out with all the finishes, drywall, insulation, plumbing, all of the basics. It's a gravel floor right now. So we've gone out to bid, and then the next slide. Is that we are out to bid. We have a contractor on it, and we are in for building permit, I think, by the end of this week, which means construction will start soon in April. And our goal is to open this fall, hopefully in September. So we're really excited. We do have a little gap that we're trying to fill. When we applied for that grant application, the concept was a little different. We had a youth center room and 2 classrooms, and the cost for that was estimated at $1.1 million. Since then, the youth center concept kind of dropped to the side. We filled it up with the other 2 infant classroom and extra toddler classroom, which has worked out really well. But the licensing requirements for those spaces are more restrooms, doors, all of those things, which increase the cost to $277,000. So we're working through that little gap to get there, but not too worried about it. We're going to charge on, and it'll work out. We actually had a really nice call yesterday with CORE, our climate resiliency group, whatever. And here they are right here. And they're going to try to figure out how to get us some mini grant to put in there. So we're taking all the pieces and being creative. So that's our...
Michelle, did you say that's an existing building?
It's an existing building, yep. So this is just for the interior build out.
Okay.
It's a new building. And so the turnover from the PUD was that the developer would build the shell.
Okay, gotcha.
And then he left the shell as a shell.
Nice.
For interior development, yeah. So we had flexibility with the floor plans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you said you've been working with Sam?
We have discussed this a little bit. I mean, frankly, this has been moving at a surprisingly rapid pace. So kind of that gap there really just came up recently when we finally went out to bid and got our final construction document back in our contract. So, I mean, very sincerely, we just figured that number out, I think, January 15th. And have been in discussion with Picken County as well, you know, trying to be respectful of who we ask and how much we ask for from everybody. So, yeah.
Is this in Eagle County or Picken County?
It's in Picken County. Yeah, otherwise I wouldn't get you a little bit harder.
Well, because we do have grants for infant toddler, development of infant toddler space. And this would be new space. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so, yeah, this is definitely adding capacity.
Michelle, I don't know if it's worth sharing, but part of the grant stipulation from the state is the grant was sort of focused on creating space for the employees of the sponsors. So we will reserve spots for Picken County employees, Town of Basalt employees, and I think we'll be able to extend that to other partners as well.
And do you feel like you'll have the staff you need to run a childcare center? A new
Yeah,
center?
she's kind of got that pipeline going already. And so some of the, she being the director of Blue Lake Preschool, Michelle Oger, since we were awarded the grant and we knew that the goal was to open in the fall, she has been ramping up her staffing and her training. So we anticipate that 2 classrooms will open first, and then based on staffing, then she'll open the additional 2. So it's kind of, I like her approach because it's realistic that it's not going to be a full gangbuster all at once.
Okay, let's hit the,
Just real quick on childcare for Eagle County, your guys' hotel, extra tax revenue, and you guys are distributing to childcare facilities. Sarah Nadaldi heads up our childcare council, and on our last meeting, it was expressed, there was great gratitude for all of the grants that Eagle County is giving for extra stipends and extra education, continuing education. So I just want to express a thank you from all the providers that were on that call that are, they say it's definitely helped recruiting and also helped them keep some of their current employees. So it's a really good execution.
Thanks for sharing
on
that.
task.
Thank you.
That was our intent, was we, in Eagle County, could count 65 staff members we needed in childcare to fill the spaces that we already had. There were classrooms that were closed, there were classrooms that were closed 1 day a week, there were classrooms that had fewer kids, and we needed 65 staff members. And so that was their idea, was we really need to have a workforce stipend. And so it's
I'd say
good to
it's
hear.
working, and I think it's a really cool program, well executed, so
Thanks.
please keep it up, because they appreciate it.
Yeah, right. I think it's important to recognize that was, we have to thank the voters because they're the ones that did it. But that's really important that I think everybody sees. Like it passed overwhelmingly, and that people recognize that is a great. I think not only need as far as safety net ability to provide service for people, but it's an economic necessity, and recognizing that you tie economic activity in the form of a sales tax, lodging tax, to that thing that is causing our economic activity, causes need for government service or for just community service. I was thinking it's been a big deal.
So I'll just say, Eagle County has not passed a tax other than a sin tax. We passed marijuana, we passed tobacco since 2005. I mean, that's a long time. And this without, it's almost a sin tax, right? Someone else is paying it. The lodging tax is paid, people perceive it as being paid by somebody else. And so without any campaign, it passed overwhelmingly. And so we're really happy and appreciative of the voters for doing that. And unfortunately, we're limited to 2%. So that's what we have coming in, and that's what we have very quickly going right back out. So we started that in November. So it was.
well, we've got a few minutes to finish up on the e-bike rebate program, Eagle County. Michelle, you're still on.
We'll make this is a really easy, quick one. Let's see here. So we did our, you guys are long ahead of us in the e-bike rebates. We did our first season last year with a lot to improve upon. We had a lot of learning curves there. So we've expanded the program, who people can buy bikes from, all of these sorts of things. We also received a grant from the state to double our rebate amount?
Wow.
So that we could offer deeper rebates to low and middle income applicants. So I think that's up to $500 now. Thank you. I should let Sarah talk. And so that's really exciting. I think we're doubling on that. What we're trying to do is expand the rebates to our 3-mile planning radius. So Sopers Village, the people that live on Valley Road, Blue Lake, all of the surrounding areas. We have a big push to, we're underway on a planning effort on Willets Lane right now to improve the bike lanes and the safety there and pedestrians. So we're really trying to double down on bike transit. So it might just be a matter of advertising the Eagle County bike rebate programs over here more, or figuring out how to partner with you so that it's all happening here. Because I think in Eagle County, the bike rebate program, you need to buy the bike in Eagle County, which could be a disincentive for some. Those bikes are heavy and you need a special bike rack to drive them back on your car.
Well, I might ask Tori to pop in here. Tori, I was thinking we didn't have a specific bike rebate program. We were doing the system.
Or I might have made that.
Yeah, I'm gonna hop in. We, a lot of our municipal neighbors have done bike rebate programs. So I think the town of Vale had one, Avon had one, I believe Eagle maybe had one, Edwards Metro had one. The county itself has not participated in funding bike rebates. What we have done is we have funded our sort of partnership cost in WeCycle, which is the Roaring Fork Valley sort of bike share system that's connected and operated through RAFTA, and we've done something similar in the Eagle River Valley through Shift Bikes, which is a partnership between Town of Vale, Town of Avon, and Edwards Metro. We have found sort of in our research and our data and talking to our partners that those systemic bike shares really is the place where we were able to find actual greenhouse gas reduction data. And so that's where, at least I know of for 2023 and 2024, that is where our sort of e-bike partnership money is parked.
Yeah, and I like that approach anyway. I'd love to hear other opinions too, but just as the county is that overarching or just larger landmass authority, is these systems are great. Like WeCycle was the original and greatest example of that, and to support that going, and it's gone at least as far as Carbondale now.
Yeah.
To have that, and along with private ownership of those bikes, or some people are using boards, I think they're crazy, but to have both of those programs in place so that we've got systemic and individual ownership.
Yeah, that's been
And I
great.
think there's Holy Cross rebates
Holy Cross.
as well for bikes, for e-bikes.
Okay, I got to do my job, and thank you guys for coming over. We have a meeting that starts in minus
Negative 4
3
minutes.
Yeah.
Thank you, how it works.
Thank
Well-
you for the hospitality.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
for the dinner and the hospitality.
Appreciate
We
it.
can recommend some excellent bars in Basalt.
Thank you.
Before you go back. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the March 12th edition of the Town of Basalt Council meeting. We just completed a good work session with Eagle County Commissioners. Appreciate them coming over. So we'll call the meeting to order and ask our town clerk to call the roll.
I'm just completing my connections here for the meeting. All right. Are you ready, Noah? Back there? Okay, thanks. Let's begin with Ryan Slack.
Here.
Elise Hoddle.
Present.
David Knight.
Here.
Angela Anderson. Here. Dieter Schindler.
Here.
And Bill Kane.
Present and in the moment here.
Excellent. Everyone's here, sir. Thank you.
Okay. So next order of business, consent agenda. We have two items. We have to continue the to April 9, 2024, public hearing and first reading of ordinance number blank, series of 24. It's the ordinance of the Town Council of Basalt approving code amendments to Chapter 18 of the town's municipal code, building regulations to make cleanup and clarification amendments to sections 18 through 23, sustainable building regulations, and section 18 through 24, type 1, sustainable building regulations. And the next item is, we're on consent, is Resolution 17 of 24 is the resolution approving an extension for a grant of tobacco funds for the Roaring Fork School District for support of sports infrastructure projects at Basalt High School and authorizing an intergovernmental agreement. So unless there are questions and need for further discussion, I'd ask for a motion on the consent agenda.
Mayor, I move that the town council approve the consent agenda items as presented.
Second.
Moved and second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All right. Any nays? No nays. Oh dear, we got that. So, as is our custom, the next item is to call for public comment and ask if there's anyone in the audience that's here present that would like to address council on an item which is not on the agenda for later discussion in the evening. And we also invite those that may be calling in virtually that want to address council to do as well. You just have to raise your hand and our town clerk will admit you to the meeting. So public comments are limited to 3 minutes. We ask that you address your comments to the mayor. We will take no action, but refer comments that call for any recommendations or actions to our town manager. So and the last thing I would say is if you are calling in, you can access us through basalt.net and follow the directions for the agenda and then log in as instructed. So, all right. With that, anybody in the audience want to address council on any item not on the agenda? Okay. Anybody calling in?
Sarah.
Done. Okay. Mayor and council reports and comments. Anyone on council, any comments?
Pam, are you able to see? I wouldn't be surprised if Sarah was wanting to speak, but she didn't raise her hand.
She didn't raise her hand.
You would see it? Okay.
I will allow her to talk, and I will elevate her to panelist, and we'll see.
She might have just been hanging out for the work session.
See her name?
Do you know who that is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
She's running for county commissioner in Eagle, so I didn't know if she was going to speak.
Well, she's also the sustainability for.
Hey, Sarah, did you have anything to say to council this evening?
I can't remember.
Sarah, can you hear us?
Because she was.
Yes.
Okay. I think we're good. Thanks, sorry for the interruption.
Okay. So Sarah, if you want to address council, just unmute and we'll acknowledge you. Does Matthew want to have a hand up? Just no. Okay.
No, he's a presenter.
Yeah, okay. Alrighty then, under council comments. I just wanted to thank the Basalt Chamber of Commerce for their candidate forum last week, which I thought went really well. It was a nice turnout, and I thought the candidates were really quite good, quite exceptional, and it's great to see. I think we have a candidate maybe in attendance. This candidate, I think, is going to vie for maybe first place on the yard sign design. There's.
My brother is a graphic designer.
Oh, that's great. The Rasta color scheme is like really excellent, so they're going to work. Anyone else comments?
Yes. James, can you
Yes.
flash that up for folks? So some of you have a flyer in front of you about the Coal Basin project. As you know, I sit on the board for the Community Office for Resource Efficiency, and they are a partner with Delta Brick and Climate. They're looking at some old mines up across the highway from Redstone, and looking at measuring methane release, trying to figure out if they can capture it, what to do with it, essentially how to remove those greenhouse gas emissions from the environment and the atmosphere. So they're doing 2 community events. That's just why I wanted to bring this up now. One will be here at the Basalt Library, and one in Redstone. So anybody who is curious to hear more about this project, James has put it up on the screen, and there's a QR code there. And I would just encourage people to attend if they're interested. Thank you.
Great. Yeah, there's a little bit of a spooky story about core and funding in the paper this week too. That's kind of caught my eye. Seems a little concerning. So,
I didn't see that one yet.
about fund sources drying up. Okay. Anyone else? All right then. Our distinguished manager, would you like to?
I just had one thing, and it's slightly premature, but I just wanted to let everybody on council know that there's a project that is on the agenda tonight that we'll talk about. It's a soil nailing project that we're looking for approval on, and that would start next week. And it is on the Frying Pan Road, and it's an effort to save the retaining wall that the sidewalk sits upon on the south side of that road. And it's one of those things that we had budgeted last year, but because of the Midland project, we thought we'd be finishing that last year, but when we put it out to bid, that was carried over into this year. So it's one of those that we really need to get to. There is some risk of losing part of that wall, and then it becomes a very big and costly project. So this soil nailing, we think, is great, but a great alternative. But we are going to put out announcements and let neighbors know and such, and it's going to be traffic controlled via traffic lights, and it's approximately 3 weeks in duration. So we'll talk a little bit more about it when that item comes up, but we will be letting all the neighbors know, and unfortunately it's just a little bit of an inconvenience in addition to some of the work that's starting on Midland. The good news is, I guess the silver lining is we timed it such that it's going to occur the middle part of it over spring break. So you're not going to have that school traffic in the morning. So hopefully there will be more people out of town during that time. But nonetheless, I just wanted to bring that to your attention to make sure it got up on the meeting for people's awareness.
Isn't most of that retention work in there all like poured in place concrete? Those walls along that sidewalk?
No, it's all wood.
Oh, it is?
Yeah,
Okay.
so it's just, kind of the stacked, treated 6
This
by
will be
6s.
soil nails with gunite or something that will?
Yeah, similar to what you saw
Yeah,
out
across
over
the
here.
road.
And I don't know if they do gunite.
Sounds like a shotcrete.
It is a shock. Yeah, they have that as well. Yeah. So yes, very similar to what we have here.
But it's not going to be visually horrific, is it?
No, you won't even see it
Okay, good.
because it's on the down slope.
Great.
So
All right.
Can I vote
You can, if you want a road. If you don't want a road.
Well, thank you for that. Make sure we get that word out. Is that?
That's it.
Okay, great. So that concludes manager's report. We go to presentations. So first item up is wildfire mitigation planning. Brian and Chris.
Yeah, so I'll invite Chris Beiser to come up, and I think all of you have met Chris. Chris is our arborist among other special projects. So one of the things he's helping us with is wildfire mitigation. And we also have Matthew Mastelier, and you can see him up on the screen there. And he works for he's a forester with the State Forest Service. So Chris actually came to me earlier last year after taking a look at some properties. So he'll go and speak with private property owners about their trees and such. And one of them have brought to his attention that, well, that's great if I deal with the trees on my property, but just over my fence are these other trees. And turns out the town owns some open space. It's a pinyon and juniper characterized open space. And the idea there would be to start some wildfire mitigation in there over the next few years, and having the State Forest Service help not only with some grant funding, potentially, or helping us write grants, but then also coming up with a plan. And Matthew will go into the detail there. But I wanted to have Chris here too, because he was sort of boots on the ground and has done a lot of work to get us to this point. So I might just start with Chris to introduce kind of a little bit more on what you found out and why you came and talked to me.
Yeah, I had, I'm Chris, by the way. I had gone out to a resident up on Ridge Road, and they had expressed some concern about how they could work on fire mitigation on their property, as well as then while we were staying there, well, what about, that area over there? And turns out that that's one of our open space areas that we take care of. Historically, it's been very minimally managed by the town. We have a couple of hiking trails that go through there. I believe the trailhead is on Hillside. And kind of cuts up, and there's a couple different loops up there that go up onto Basalt Mountain. And we were looking at it, and I said, I'll look more into it. And the more I looked into it, there actually is a pretty unique kind of mix of who actually owns that land. We own a small portion of the open space, but then actually right where this resident sits, you can see the T where it transitions to Colorado open wildlife land. And so we decided to look at it more as like a big picture, that there's no point in really trying to do fire mitigation on these 5 acres if the other 80 acres surrounding it are untouched. So we decided to engage with State Forestry, Colorado Parks and Wildlife, and then hopefully with homeowners that are kind of butting up to that to create kind of a big picture 3 to 5 year strategy of how we're going to come up with some fire mitigation plans up on both the open space, that's I believe it's the Highlands open space. The Wilds open space. And then just above that, the Highlands open space, which is also owned by the town. We then also kind of expanded to look at everywhere in the town to try to really get our heads wrapped around, the full umbrella of what we could do. And that kind of expanded into more privately owned and then state-owned wild spaces. So the Wilds HOA has a large area up there that's privately owned. And as we've kind of dived into this, we've gotten involved with various groups. We've found that people have been kind of doing a patchwork of efforts over the years to try to keep this fire mitigation going, especially in response to the Lake Christine fire. And we thought it was all good. It was good to sit down and really all of us come together and come up with a overarching plan so it have more cohesive, more broad goals that we can really achieve with that fire mitigation.
Great, yeah, thank you. And one other thing I'll say before we turn it over to Matthew is, for the last 2 years, I've been participating in the Wildfire Collaborative. And so there is a valley-wide effort occurring, and the focus there is to look at wildfire mitigation at the landscape level. But there's also continuing to be sort of localized projects. We did just have a brief meeting, and I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago, and we did have CPW was there, the town of Basalt, State Forest, Roaring Fork Fire Rescue, and then we're also bringing in Angie Davlin, as she might be able to help a bit with just public outreach and that kind of thing. I will say, as we get into this conversation, what looks like a fairly healthy stand of pinyon and juniper in some of these open spaces actually is a modified landscape, just from lack of wildfire and things like that. I won't try to get into the science because I'll just twist myself into a knot, but we'll hear that from Matthew. But I think what we're proposing here really does increase the safety, and I think it brings all of the parties in who should be at the table, and then the plan is to roll it out to the public, particularly those that are adjacent to the property, just to make them aware of the why and the when and that kind of thing, and gather feedback from them. So with that, I'll introduce Matthew, and he can take it over.
Matthew, welcome.
Sorry, go ahead.
You can go ahead.
Okay. Hi, guys. My name is Matthew Massler. I'm a forester with the Colorado State Forest Service. Yeah, so we've been reached out to regarding some fuels mitigation work surrounding your community there, and we were just hoping to put together as much of a project as we can, crossing boundaries and not being stopped by these silly arbitrary lines that are on a map, and trying to protect as much area as we can. And like Ryan had mentioned, a lot of these areas are already infested with pinyon nips, so you can see some of those areas have dying trees, and they are susceptible to fire because, as you've seen with the Lake Christine fire, some of these areas can go up very quickly with extreme fire behavior. So if I can go to the next slide, I can talk about some of the goals for the project. So what we're looking to get out of it is a couple different things. First of all, we're trying to obviously accomplish wildfire mitigation. That one's pretty obvious. We're going to be going into the prescriptions a little bit more later on here. But we're also looking at ecological restoration. So we're looking at it with a wildlife focus as well. So some of these areas have pinyon pines that are in this bushy form, and they're over the top of this sagebrush land. And so it's called encroachment of pinyon pine and juniper into historically dominated sagebrush lands. And this kind of treatment is really good for restoring this to more of those stands that are good for sage obligate species like the greater sage grouse and the Gunnison sage grouse. And then our last main goal here is about forest health. And so one that we've been talking about, and Chris has had a lot of input on this as well, is that we want to try and have multiple age cohorts. So there's not just one continuous stand of all these higher level trees. We want to have multiple canopy cover levels so that there's more of an uneven age class and there's more diversity in what we're seeing out on the landscape. And lastly, we just wanted to try and develop partnerships with some of these different people. So hopefully being able to develop projects in the future with them, like Colorado Parks and Wildlife, Wilds HOA, Roaring Fork Fire Protection, and Roaring Fork Valley Wildfire Collaborative. And one more I will add that we are potentially talking to is with Holy Cross Electric as well, seeing if we can get some more work done on their property, but nothing for sure, and we're still in the talks with CPW as well. If we can go to the next slide, I can show you guys the area we're looking at. So I have a PDF map I had sent along as well for this, but in general, it is those areas that Chris had described. So you can see the ones that are the orange and yellow areas. Those are townlands. So those are the highlands and pinyon parcels up above Pinyon Drive. And you can see the blue polygon is CPW. And that is a proposed treatment that we had sent along to them, but they have concerns of cumulative effects from the Lake Christine fire. So that shapefile you're seeing there is not 100% set in stone. We're waiting to hear back from them on some more definitive boundaries, but the general hope is to connect it, like Chris had mentioned, trying to make sure that the landowners who are directly adjacent to that are a little bit more protected, and connecting those treatments from the northern section of the town of Basalt land to the southern section you can see down there, adjacent to the Wilds HOA. and then also working with Wild's HOA to connect treatments into their land as well. And we can go to the next slide here. What we're looking to see is just a couple different treatments we're going to be doing in the land. And these are subject to change as well, but this is the general idea of what we're looking for out of this project, is trying to do what we call a thinning from below in pinyon juniper woodlands. So what this is going to look like is we're going to thin to about a 25 to 30 foot canopy spacing and select for trees that are in good health, good size, and ideally some of these older trees so that they have better overall health and vigor. And it wouldn't just be like one tree and a clump, or one tree and then just a big space. We're trying to clump them up as much as we can depending on like if there's healthy trees in those areas. And then like I had talked about establishing those multi-age cohorts, we would want to have some stands that are just, or some of those patches that are also just seedlings or saplings as well. The second one I had discussed is the ecological restoration of sagebrush. And those have those wildlife benefits that I had talked about, and removing the pinyon juniper from those sagebrush lands. And lastly, Wild's HOA conducted some work on their lands directly adjacent to some of their properties. It was basically clearing out the oak brush that was underneath some of their properties, because it would be a big fire risk if it caught right by that drainage there, and then straight up it would be funneled straight towards the houses. So just wanting to maintain that and keep it in place for the future. And we can go to the next slide here. So as a general timeline, we're still in the project layout phase, just trying to figure out where we're at with everything and try and pull in all the partners. But this summer would be actually laying out the units and getting everything together and putting together the scope of work, and also talking to the community and trying to get as much support as we can and answer any questions or concerns they might have. And then this fall, we'd be applying for grant funding. We're still figuring out the exact grant that fits the best for this, but we have a couple of different ones we're looking at. And treatments would probably be limited a little bit by opinion IPs, but the idea would be implementation starting whenever the grant funding is acquired and completing by spring of 2027. And then hopefully being able to complete maintenance of the project using Roaring Fork Outdoor volunteers. And if they aren't available, there's a couple other volunteer groups who we could contact to help maintain the project. And it would be a low-cost maintenance after the initial investment of the project. We can go to the next slide to talk about funding. So the services agreement that you have that we had talked about with Ryan and Chris, it's just to cover our time basically to go out there and lay out the project and administer it and help write the grants. So that's what that $9,000 is. And then covering the contractor costs, that is grant reimbursable. And it would be about 30 acres what we're looking to do is a hand cut and pile. So it'd be all chainsaw work, and then they would go in and pile it in certain spots for later burning through Roaring Fork Fire and Rescue. And that comes out to about $2,500 an acre. And that grant funding, we would qualify for a 25% match, which means that, about 75 grand total, but after reimbursements, it would be about like 18 to 20 grand, somewhere in that range. Obviously, it's going to fluctuate depending on what our final acreage is and what the bids come in at for contractors. And then in terms of the slash disposal, like what's left remaining after the treatments, we had talked to Roaring Fork and Fire and Rescue, and they said that we are able to do pile burning in those areas. And we've also discussed chipping near homes where it's more of a concern that landowners aren't going to want to see this big pile of slash that's right outside their house. So Chris had some contacts about chipping near those homes. That's all I have for you guys. My last slide just said questions, so I would be happy to take any questions you might have or address any concerns.
Matthew, I just have two things I want to bring up. I think it would be helpful if we could bring the map back up for a little further explanation. And James, do you by chance have that PDF map he sent up? It's just, I think, better, a little better quality, bigger for people to see. And then, Matthew, you were saying it a little fast, but so I don't know those of you that are familiar with the pinyon ips beetle, but that is present up on the hillside. So essentially that kills the pinions. And Chris, between you and Matthew, if you want to just explain a little bit about that and sort of, if we don't do anything, what's the risk to that forest anyway?
Right.
The pinion nips.
I've been dealing with pinion nips beetle pretty much since I got here. It's when you look up on the hillside, you notice the big stands of pinyon pines, and you'll notice kind of essentially clusters of them are starting to die. And I've had to deal with a lot of residents calling, having pinions in their yards just suddenly crash over the course of a year or two. That's caused by this pinion nips beetle. It's what I would call a secondary or an opportunistic pest. It's something that in a very healthy ecosystem, something that's got a lot of water, that's, not have all these really unique environmental conditions being pushed on it these days. The pinions would be able to kind of fight that beetle off on its own. But now with our continued drought concerns, along with stressors like the Lake Christine fire, some of the lasting changes in how that water dynamic now moves on the mountain, these trees are now kind of subject to environmental conditions that the last 50 plus years or their entire lives they haven't really been subject to. So these beetles are able to essentially jump in and on stressed pinions wipe them out in a matter of a year or two. The problem being that if you leave those dead trees up there that are infected with IPS, that have died from IPS, they essentially serve as a source for that beetle to be able to jump to the next round of trees. So pretty often you'll see that an IPS beetle will move into an area, you'll find one or two trees that initially are like the source of infection, and then you get almost like this bullseye target as it radiates outward from that space until it jumps to the next spot. You'll notice up on the hillside that as a result we have kind of these clumps that have started to form of just kind of dead pinion stands. Junipers are unaffected by it, but now we have these dead pinions, which are essentially a massive fuel source, as well as feeding this high population of this pest. And it's an unrealistic pest to, for instance, go up there and treat for, just considering the terrain, considering the volume of chemicals you would have to do to preventatively treat for it. It's just logistically not something you can treat for. So part of this whole project is a side effect of being able to do all this fire mitigation, going out there, clearing out these dead trees, is we won't eradicate the beetle, but we'll certainly bring that population that's up there way down to kind of reduce that pressure on the remaining pinions that we leave behind.
That's great, thank you.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry, you have a next one?
I'm just curious about what the clearing method's going to be. Are you...
This map here is going to, that's what I wanted Matthew to get into with you guys.
Yeah, it's a challenging deal. I was on CPW for a long time, and
it
was our number one strategy for mule deer habitat improvement was removing overage pinyon juniper.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the methodology was pretty brutal.
It certainly is. And it was a big conversation topic of ours, especially in the areas that are really adjacent to homeowners. Part of this is going to be a very large public outreach, really engaging with people and teaching them about why we'd be doing this. It's not that we're just going in there cutting down things for the sake of cutting down. Another part of this is kind of striking this balance of what will effectively give us that fire mitigation benefit while also not doing the flat out just going and clearing entire areas. I think I don't know if you've been up to CMC in Spring Valley, they've done a pretty aggressive form of fire mitigation where they essentially went in and leveled entire areas of pinions. That's not really our intention here. We have two different strategies. One is kind of to create more of a mosaic style thinning, where he was describing where we have like a minimum distance that we pick between individual trees. Now, typically with that strategy, you would favor the larger trees and get rid of all that understory smaller trees, but we've talked more about actually picking a wide range of tree sizes, tree ages, so that we're not stuck when we're done with this project with a huge collection of mature pinions with nothing behind to kind of take over that space as those pinions naturally die. And so we're actually going to be specifically going out there and choosing a range of both size and age of pinions so that we kind of essentially are just thinning the canopy and not necessarily leveling or selecting for one age of species. In the other area, we will be doing more of a mosaic style thinning, where we kind of we're actually pulling back on that what they call encroachment of those pinions and junipers moving into natural sagebrush areas. I believe that is more of the orange area up there. So if you notice, that's further up the mountain where we're further away from. What was that?
The green is the ecological restoration, yeah.
Yeah, and so we're really focusing more on the more aggressive strategy for fire mitigation on areas where we're further away from those residents and places where we're truly up on Basalt Mountain that people aren't going to be, looking at it out their window every day.
Are you going to be clearing them with, like, flush cutting with chainsaws? Or are you going to be using equipment and chaining? Or?
No, it's got to be handwork.
It's all handwork because the grade up there is just too much to get even like a chipper up there in most cases. So we had talked originally about going up there and essentially selectively removing stuff, pulling it off the mountain so we can kind of really quickly and cleanly leave behind, just this thinned out final product. But realistically, it's going to be people with chainsaws and then creating these burn piles in places that we can then burn them down the road.
That sounds good.
What's the maintenance look like? I saw like every 5-year maintenance. Is that like, what's the approach to that entail?
The maintenance would be addressing the stuff that's coming in after the treatment. So like picture the oak brush that I talked about. They had to do, they've been doing maintenance every 2 years on that oak brush to make sure it doesn't keep coming back. So what we're trying to propose there is like an herbicide treatment so it's a little bit easier to maintain in the future. And then in some of these other areas, it's addressing the seedlings that are going to be coming up and acting as ladder fuels beneath some of these taller pinyon pine trees, and trying to reduce any type of like vertical continuity and addressing that horizontal continuity of the fuels by thinning out the trees as well.
And I do want to just clarify, he mentioned herbicides. The intention is not to go up there with backpacks and just start hosing down areas that we don't want things to grow back. This would be very selective, like paintbrushing of stumps to make sure that stuff isn't popping back up, or again, thinning out certain species that we don't want to just take over the area once we've opened it up for that, to help that native ecosystem come back.
Matthew, would you just really quickly walk them through what the green and the orange spaces are on the map?
For sure. So like I said, the orange is the potential thinning areas. And again, these are based on aerial imagery. So it definitely is subject to change based on what we find on the ground. But those are the areas that are more densely populated with pinyon pine and juniper. And then those green polygons are the ones that they look like they're a bit more sagebrush dominated with just some more of the pinyon pine coming in. And so those ones are the ones that we would need to do what we call the ecological restoration and remove the pinyon pine and juniper from those encroachment areas. And then the blue, again, is just a proposed treatment, but again, very subject to change depending on what we hear back from CPW. Again, could be much smaller than that depending on what they find with cumulative effects and any concerns they might have.
And you can see on that map that the yellow, I believe, is the trails that we sent them our shapefile from a recent trails inventory that we did in town. So one facet of this project would actually be to be improving those trail amenities as we go through, being sensitive to the fact that people are still using those trails. And so everything we would be actually trying to thin in a way that actually improves that trail access as part of this project.
And one thing to add on to that, Chris had brought up a really great idea about trying to show the public what it's going to look like. So flagging out a small area along the Basalt Mountain Trail and showing like what this 25 to 30 foot spacing is going to look like along that trail so they can have a better idea of how to visualize it instead of just a conceptual description of what it's going to be.
And we thought about even like a placard, like some kind of educational.
We've talked about that and considered it as a possible option. So typically when you go and do this thinning, you kind of lay out the specs of your general spacing you want, and then you let the crew that you've hired, part of the reason you hired them is because they have the expertise to make those decisions. To realistically have me go out and flag every individual tree on 100 acres of what we're going to remove is kind of a labor issue there. But the idea would be specifically around the trails, we would take the time to kind of hand pick which things we're selecting so that the stuff that people are really directly interacting with, we'd have a little bit more selection over.
That could be cool for like education, like kind
yeah,
of interpretive.
Absolutely.
I got to say, this is very gratifying to see us not kind of operating in a silo relative to all this kind of forest management. This is very encouraging kind of project because, you know, we're working with the State Forest Service and the neighbors and it's critical stuff. I mean, that's all that area escaped the 2018 fire and it's just sitting there ready to go. So,
Right.
And we did have another fire last summer.
Yeah,
That
right.
started from a cigarette butt, and so it can happen again. And that was in a high fuel area. Luckily, they got it out.
Yeah, it was going fast. So, ounce of prevention, pound of cure.
Yep.
No, it's very good to see the amount of people that are excited about fuels mitigation and know that. I mean, I know Lake Christine fire is still fresh in everyone's minds, but it is very exciting to see that everyone is so on board with this project. Everyone that I've talked to, at least.
Well,
Good. Thank you, Matthew. Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot.
thanks, Matthew. This is good work here. Thanks.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Chris, way to go. Are you gonna be up there cutting them, or you're gonna watch?
I'm going to watch. I'll be the guy selecting and being like, no, not this one. You have to take this one.
Great. We have one more presentation, and this one is on parcel 2E at Cypress Meadows, Affordable Housing and Child Care Grant Update. Michelle, would you get nice and close to that microphone? Because sometimes I don't
You know it.
hear you too well.
You got it. Is it on? Is it just me? Well, this is a little bit, our work session with the Eagle County Commissioners was a little bit of a spoiler alert, so you got the official word there. But we were awarded a More Housing Now state grant to do planning and engineering work on parcel 2E, which is more commonly known as the vacant property across the street from Taka on Lewis Lane. 2.5 acres there, looking at childcare and affordable housing mixed use development. And this is in partnership. We got the grant with Eagle County. They have supplied the matching funds, a portion of them to help us with this grant. So what we'll be doing is in late April, maybe early May, advertising an RFP for design and planning firms. To go through the whole public process, land use entitlements, and have a project that is ready to move into construction. Because we need those documents to be competitive to get more grants.
Yeah.
So that's the short end of the story. Congratulations, we're making progress. And that RFP will be out soon.
So we are looking at ways to roll this out in bite-sized pieces, or is this going to be one swing for the fences here?
I don't think we know yet. I think
Yeah.
first it's just the planning and conceptual layout.
I think that through the public outreach, we'll get a sense of how big and what type of facilities we want for the childcare.
Yeah.
And then what density will be tolerable and fit well on the site for the affordable housing. With only 2 uses there are only so many options that can happen, so I think we're going to get there.
I just have one quick question. I know in our, I forgot what kind of session it was, but it was a pre-meeting session. We had kicked out the idea of a community rec center or exploring that. Is that completely out, or is it?
I think that's still on the table, and through the public outreach, excuse me, we can certainly go through that and see where we are. I think the main opportunity here for us going forward is that the footprint of the child care, rec center, whatever use that will be be paid for by the housing on top. So there's an efficiency here to have these uses together. So, but yes, that's not forgotten.
Okay.
Get you back on schedule by keeping my thing short.
Thanks, Michelle. Any questions for Michelle on 2E? Thank you. This is a big deal. So council actions, next item 7A. This is first reading on ordinance number 4, series of 2024. Ordinance of the Town of Basalt, Colorado, approving amendments to Municipal Code Section 8-4, Schedule 2, Vehicles and Traffic, Special Hazards and to section 16-22, schedule of uses and requirements to add road classifications for setback determination purposes, and to make minor amendment to on-street parking requirements. James.
Yeah, thank you. This is first reading of an ordinance on code amendments to Town Code Sections 8-4 and 16-22. And as the mayor indicated, it's to add road classifications for setback determination purposes and to make minor adjustments to the on-street parking requirements on several streets to reflect what is actually happening in the field. As background, most of the zone districts in the town code base their front yard setbacks on the type of street that a property abuts. And the options for street classifications in the zone districts are arterial that we have on the screen, collector, or local streets. Staff has traditionally made determinations on the type of streets that a property is on, kind of on a case-by-case basis at the time of building permit. But staff has had several requests recently to determine what type of street a property is on for setback reasons. And as such, staff thought it would be a good idea to get the street classifications actually in the code. Staff has also had it on our amendment list for quite some time, so we thought it'd be appropriate to bring it forward. It's pretty simple in terms of classifying the streets in Basalt. Most are local streets, with the exception of a couple of other streets, Midland, Two Rivers, and Basalt Avenue, south side, going up to the high school, and Willets Lane are not the local streets, but everything else is local, basically, based on the definitions. So we thought we would put those in the street classifications, and the best place to put them would be the streets table that we have in section 8-4. So the P&Z reviewed those classifications and recommended approval. Also, as I noted, there are 2 on-street parking cleanups for that table in 8-4. Those would be that Southside Drive and Sopris Drive. We need to amend those to show that parking's allowed in designated locations, which is what's happening on those streets now and what it's signed for. So as I noted, P&Z recommended approval on the proposed code amendments, and so staff would recommend taking any public comments you have, asking any questions about them that you may have of staff, and then if you're comfortable, you could approve the ordinance on first reading.
Questions of James? Are Midland and Two Rivers collectors? Do we use that terminology? And I should have read the fine print, but I didn't.
We use Midland and Two Rivers as arterials.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 82 is a major arterial.
82 is a highway.
Yeah.
Under our classification.
All right. Questions, comments, motions?
Mayor, I move the town council approve ordinance number 4, series of 2024, on first reading and set the public hearing and second reading for April 9th, 2024.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. We can do this by voice, according to council. So all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. On to 7B, Resolution 13, Series of 2024. Resolutions Town Council of Basalt, Colorado approving the 200 Few Lane roofing project and authorizing staff to enter into a contract with Better Line Roofing. Boyd and Matt.
So they're both here. Matt, you want to just come up? And Boyd, you guys are the next 4 items. So if you guys have any questions, you want to just say briefly what the roofing project is?
Yep, so at our shop over on Few Lane, a lot of the solar panels that were installed on there a long time ago, a lot of the wraps they used on the footers to go into the roof are leaking. And the roof's just past its lifespan. So I think we got like 6 total bids. We had it on BidNet. We had 2 locals, but we had a company out of Keensburg that came out. They're at the pre-bid meeting and We called all their references. They had one in Junction, they had one in one of the campuses in Wyoming, and everybody had great things to say about them, and they were by far the lowest bidder. So I had no reason to disqualify them. But yeah, it looks like it should be a good project.
What kind of roof is it?
It's TPO, so rubber membrane.
Yeah. Like
Flat roof.
Built up like roof design?
I'm sorry?
It's a built up kind of membrane, so they're,
Yeah, so it's on, like, it's got your trusses, and then there's plywood, and then there's insulation on top of that, and then the rubber.
yeah, built up roof.
Yep.
Yeah. That's great. All right. Any questions, comments, motions?
Did the solar panels go back up?
Maybe needs a new roof
Yes.
here.
Yeah, and with the right wrapping.
Okay,
So,
so
yeah.
the warranty and all that'll be?
15-year.
Okay, with everything kind of
Mhm.
together. Cool.
Yep.
And I think we originally got the building for $1 from Snowmass.
That's pretty cool.
Okay.
Mayor, I move the town council adopt resolution number 13, series of 2024.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, thank you, gentlemen. We move on to, I think you stay right there. Resolution 14, Series of 24, resolution of the Town Council of Basalt, Colorado, approving the 2024 streets maintenance and 2024 paving project and authorizing staff to enter into a contract with Frontier Paving. So, you guys want to tell us what we're doing?
Yeah, it's not a ton this year. We'll be paving like East Emma, basically by the Valero there, so we'll be doing that little shot. And then Two Rivers Road from 82, basically to where the guardrail starts, from where we started paving, I think it was about 5 years ago. So we got a good, 5 years of life. We were hoping that we could try to save that section, but I think the buses just rutted it out too bad. It didn't hold up, so it's time to kind of mill and overlay again. So not a whole lot. A lot of chip seal this year, but not a ton of paving.
Okay.
More preventative versus reactive, so.
Questions of Matt or Boyd about paving?
You mentioned paving by the Valero.
Mhm.
I know that at some point that is a private road. Where does that start?
It's right at the seam, so like right at Subway.
Okay,
It's
so
just a
that
straight
section-
shot, yeah.
That section in front of the car wash, that's not gonna get hit.
No, but after this.
Such a mess.
I know, after this, I was gonna reach out to the board, like the HOA, the road association over there, and your buildings, and just see if they wanted to get with Frontier and try to figure something out. Well, we got it all
Great.
a mess, just if they could even just do some patching.
Yeah, that would be
Yeah.
amazing.
Yep, we'll do.
Thank you.
You bet.
What's the protocol for, like, kind of I don't know if it's rubber, tar, it's probably tar, in the cracks, like, how often do you have to do those? And
Crack sealing? Yep, so that we got a different contract for, which is not a ton of money, but we'll be doing that around Easter.
Okay.
Yep, so I'm trying to think of what we bid out. I think it was about 20,000 pounds of crack seal. So we'll go around. I'll make a list of the roads. I was actually at a training today, and I was just talking to one of the guys from Denver, and I got to come up with a list this week. But so all the roads we chip seal, you want to crack seal those first before you chip. So that protects the crack seal.
Okay.
So we'll hit all those roads first, and then we'll just kind of go in priority. So yep, it's like a 2.5 week deal pretty much. So, but yep, it's pretty much slated for right around Easter.
Okay.
And the guy doing that's Art. He's out of he had the lowest bid as well, out of Junction. So
Nice.
yep, that'll be happening soon.
Cool. Thanks for that
Yep.
info.
Yeah.
Okay, so we need motion for Resolution 14.
Mayor, I move the town council adopt resolution number 14, series of 2024.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution 14 passes. Thank you. Next item, Resolution 15, Series of 2024. Resolution of the Town Council of Basalt, Colorado, approving the 2024 Streets Capital Project. Frying Pan Sidewalk Retaining Wall Repair. This is the item Ryan briefed us on earlier. And authorizing staff to enter into a contract with B&Y Drilling. It's, soil nails and...
Yep,
And it's
correct.
the same company that did the wall over here, so.
Yeah.
Yep.
We're not going to create the basalt the columnar basalt effect there, are we? Good. Any questions for these gentlemen on the Frank Van Road retention works?
Is that main wall where the wire fence is?
It's like like a little more towards town, like downtown,
Do you know
like
where
right
the
after that.
driveway that goes down to the trout, where the trout is?
Yeah.
Just before that.
Before that, so almost at like the fishing cabins?
Yeah, in between, right in between.
Okay.
It's where that drop off kind of is, where there's no fence or anything.
Yep.
That's where all those old railroad ties are they're falling.
They're starting to slow.
Yep, exactly.
Okay, any other questions? Entertain a motion to approve Resolution 15.
Mayor, I move that the town council adopt resolution number 15, series of 2024.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we're moving now. So, Resolution 16, Series of 2024, resolution of the Town Council of Basalt, Colorado, approving an agreement for professional services with Good Earth Landscaping and Maintenance LLC. Boyd and Matt again, so.
We've been with Good Earth for the last 3 years, and they've done a really good job. They've been conscientious about the work they've done. They've been real responsive to Chris and Trevor, which basically are with them every day, talking about projects and stuff.
Yeah.
And compared to some other ones we had, they really do a good job for the town, we feel like. And so we got some bids, and they were competitive, and seemed like they brought a bigger picture to the table, and so we were preferred them.
Great. Do we have a proposal from them? Do we have a contract in
Yeah.
place?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
great. Okay, questions for Matt or Boyd? Okay, I entertain a motion to approve Resolution 16.
Mayor, I move that the town council adopt resolution number 16, series of 2024.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. All
Oh,
those
sorry.
in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. That takes us to the first reading of proposed ordinance number 5, series of 2024. I think some people just showed up, perhaps want to have an interest in this. This is an ordinance of the Town Council of the Town of Basalt, Colorado, amending Chapter 4, Article 3 of the Basalt Municipal Code to require adherence to representations made to the town electors regarding the uses and expenditures of general obligation bond funds, and amending Chapter 16, Article 5 of the Municipal Code to provide for preservation of parking in the downtown parking area. Ryan and Jeff.
Sure, I'll introduce this. This is the town council's consideration of the proposed initiative ordinance. Just a little background. The initiative petition was first filed with the town last August. It was initially rejected because a component of it did not propose legislation. The power of initiative is limited to legislation and not administrative or executive functions. Ultimately, the petitioners committee submitted a revised initiative petition, which was then approved and then circulated for signatures. As you know, eventually signatures were collected. That initiative petition was submitted in January. The town determined that there are insufficient number of signatures on the petition based on a number of different criteria. Ultimately, the initiative petition went to a hearing officer, at which the petitioners committee was able to introduce additional evidence that was not available to the town at the time the initiative petitions were first submitted. And based on that additional evidence, the hearing officer found that some of the rejected petitions should be accepted, thus getting them to a sufficient number of signatures on the initiative petition for this to proceed to town council for your consideration. So town council has two options with this proposed ordinance. It could adopt the proposed ordinance on first reading tonight and then adopt the ordinance as it would under its normal procedures. or it can refer the initiative to the town voters for their consideration at a special election. Based on the town charter provision, the special election would be held within the next 90 days. If the council does decide to refer this to the voters, we would come back to council with a resolution to actually set that election. The timing of when it would occur is a little tricky based on the application of some state statute and blackout dates if an election's too close to a congressional primary and so forth. But would come back to council with a resolution to set that election. So that's the procedural history, and those are the two options for council. I'm happy to answer any questions you guys might have about the ordinance or the procedure or anything else. Yep.
Okay. Ryan, anything?
Nope, I think Jeff outlined it.
Okay, so questions? Let me just clarify, there are a lot of people here interested in this. So the way this works is that this is a first reading on an ordinance. This is kind of tricky here. First readings are not public hearings, so we're not under any legal obligation to take public comment on this tonight. So if this fails, then we're done and the election will be set. I just think because of basically all the attention this has garnered, I would just ask my fellow councilors whether we would, well, let me just ask, did you want to address council tonight, or do you just want to hear what we're doing here?
Looking at me.
Yeah, you're the ringleader. I mean,
I told everybody it was first reading and no one would be allowed to speak.
okay.
Certainly
Is that breaking anyone's heart, or is, what I'm getting at is, should I try to get a motion here to allow public comment on this, if the town attorney agrees? Okay. Thank you. This is excellent. So we're not going to have public comment then. That door's open if anybody wants to, but I think the reading I'm getting is that I think you're here to see what the discussion is. So anyway, having said that, the door is open for council comment and discussion. Anybody want to go?
You double click on the blackout dates, like when would this?
Pam, I think this would likely be beginning of May if for a special election.
Yeah. There were some dates on Tuesdays in May.
And there was also the issue of just the lead time needed to conduct the election. It's not as easy as just setting it next week and having it here to do the election. There's a little bit of lead time on getting ballots prepared and so forth.
Would that be mail-in ballots again, like our current April 2nd
Most likely,
election?
yes.
Any comments? Any discussion? I'd be happy to kick it off here. So my take on this is that, first of all, I'd say that I think everybody up here acknowledges the right of petition and referendum and citizen basically challenging or calling into question things that they don't like from their elected officials. And that's cornerstone of democracy, and I think we all support that. But having said that, and I'm going to certainly be voting against adopting this as an ordinance, I think a number of things about the language and the ordinance as drafted. One is the overriding impression that I have is completely not necessary. And it's not necessary because there are two features to this petition. One is that the town be bound by its representations about what we were going to spend for the Midland Avenue improvements. And we said we'd use $9 million of bond proceeds and that we had $11.5 million budget. We had $9 million in bond proceeds. We were going to raise money from either town reserves or grants. We've done a whale of a good job of getting grants, and we're way under the budget. I think this ordinance, first of all, by sleight of hand, creates the impression that that the Midland Spur was included in the overall project. It was not. So the Midland Spur was funded separately. So we now are operating under a guaranteed maximum price contract with Stutzman Gerbaz to complete the Midland Avenue Phase 2 project for about $8 million, somewhere in there.
Just a little over 6.
How much?
6.
6. So that's right, we went through the value engineering piece of this. So we are drastically under representations to the public. You could argue it was 9 million or 11.5 million, but we're at 6. So that piece of this ordinance is completely superfluous. And like the parking thing, is just going to be confusing to the voters. Second piece of this, parking, is calls for restrictions on the town's ability to regulate, manage, and manipulate on-street parking. I've been involved in land use in municipalities in Colorado for 50 years. I've never encountered one incident where anyone would tell you that parking within a right-of-way is described as off-street parking. You know, it just defies common sense that parking within a public right-of-way could somehow be defined as off-street parking. That one's hard to fathom. So that's another reason I will not be supporting this this ordinance. The other thing is that there's a lot of mythology that it surrounds this as well, that, you know, that we're reducing parking in the downtown drastically. We are not. We are relocating it. Parking is now going to be on the spur instead of in front, and it's not all being removed. There's like a 2-block area where angle parking is going to go to parallel parking. And there is a reduction of spaces in front of the restaurants on the north side of the street. But there's going to be plenty of parking that make up for it at the spur. And I think people have demonstrated a willingness to use it because it's being used pretty aggressively. So at the end of the day, I think that this ordinance, even if approved, changes nothing. I mean, we're basically under contract, we're underway, the project's funded, it's in complete accord with the voter approvals. I think the net effect of this proposed ordinance is to confuse the voter. I think it's been presented to people as a vehicle to stop the project. In no way can it do it. I mean, it's just not happening. You know, the project's approved, we're under contract, and you know, I think the numbers, the budget, and the dollars that have been organized to fund the project is just openly clear. There's a line item by item budget, and now it's subject to a GMAX contract. So it is beyond me. We appreciate your hard work. We appreciate your enthusiasm in the town. It's healthy. It's great to have a debate. But I guess, to be honest with you, Ted, I don't get this one. I really do not. So I'm going to be voting let's go to an election. And, you know, I think it'd be a mistake for us to adopt this thing.
I guess that's my question is, if we adopt it, it's so vague. What happens if we adopt it?
Well, I mean, I certainly have my opinion. The petitioners and their attorney may have a different opinion. So it may open the door to
more lawsuits.
Yeah, potentially over what the interpretation of the code provision is in application.
But that would be true if it went to the electorate and it was voted in as well. We'll still have a process of trying to figure out how we would actually implement it, correct?
Correct. Yeah, so, I mean, everybody knows I've been supportive of the Midland project, and I'm supportive of sending it to the voters. I mean, the things that come to mind with this, I work in, I think most people know, I work in tech software, right? And I feel like this is buggy code. Like we're going to, if we were to adopt this ordinance, we would introduce code that notionally was, intended to impact parking, but would actually not impact the parking that folks are concerned about, and would impact private property owners by precluding them from making certain changes without health and safety. And that could impact what they want to do with their buildings and things like that. So I believe that language, the petition wouldn't affect this, but could potentially affect something else in an adverse, unintended way. As far as the bond money, I think we already do that. We have to do that by law. Like if we borrow money, we have to use it for what we said we're going to use it for. I mean, so it's almost like that's neutral or redundant in there. But at the end of the day, we budgeted 11.5 for the original scope, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, and we're coming in under that for the original scope. Plus, we're doing additional scope because we have the money, because we should be investing in ourselves. We should take advantage when we're in this state of transformation, essentially, to do that work. So in the end, it's going to be a positive thing. I really do. And I think even a lot of you in the room, I have vast respect for people who take their time to participate in the public process. It's awesome. It really is. And I got to applaud you all for doing that. But I hope you enjoy, if the voters, vote the way I hope they do, I hope you all enjoy the net effect of the project. I think it's going to be awesome. I think it's going to be a net benefit for the town. I'm glad we can do the spur to keep parking neutral. And I think it's going to be great. I really do. I'm really upbeat about it. But I also appreciate that you guys are participating in the process, make your voices heard. So thank you for that.
I also do commend you real quick for participating. I love it. I talked to one of your signature people, had a great discussion. But I also disagree with you guys too. This was done in a public process. You can go review every single meeting we talked about this. None of it was ever an executive session. We had so much outreach. I get you don't agree with it. That's totally your right. But we can't do something and then every time part of the people don't agree with it, come back and redo it. It just doesn't work. We delayed the project by putting it out for rebid, which everyone asked for. It's a spiral. I encourage everyone to participate at the time that these discussions are going on in this town. I've been here for 6 years. I've been through a lot of this, and I encourage you guys to continue to participate, but try to be more proactive than reactive.
I agree with Councilor Slack. I also agree that, I appreciate your efforts, but I also appreciate the public's input at the very, very, very beginning of when this was not even on the drawing board at the time. I appreciate the committees that this has gone through, and they've reviewed it and looked at it and asked the questions and poked and prodded. Then it comes to council. So I too appreciate the process. And now it's execution time. I believe in this project. I believe it's good for Basalt's future. I think there's going to be, like every construction project, a little dirt, some growing pains. I think it's it's coming in reasonably priced. I think the town should reinvest its dollars in the town. And I think for Basalt, the future, my kids, and as a citizen, I'm glad to see this project move forward.
I'd just like to say, I think that this ordinance is kind of born out of this unhealthy fixation on road traffic versus foot traffic. And I don't think it would be wise to spend the amount of money that we are spending to redevelop Midland to continue to focus on cars first. It's not good for the air, it's not good for our bodies, it's not good for our communities. Walkable communities are better. And I think that all of us up here, especially with our kids and the communities that we envision them living into, we understand that we are not going to continue to spend tens of millions of dollars on redeveloping communities so that it's cars first, so that we can all park right up front where we want to, so we don't have to move our bodies. And people that need special parking will always have it because that is made available. And so I just want to say that I think that we're wise in the spending of our money and relocating that parking and having people get out and walk around our beautiful community.
I guess I'm last to weigh in. So I was part of the 2019 Basalt master planning process. before I was a counselor. And I attended all of the outreach and the community engagement, and we did hear again and again and again, small town atmosphere is hugely important to this community. And one of the things that we learned from that process is to ask what that means. And that was a huge mistake not to dig a little bit deeper, because that is a subjective term and it means a lot of different things to different people. So those of you who have been here in the community a long time, maybe small town atmosphere means keeping things exactly the way that they are, and keeping things the same, because that's how you like it. There's a lot of turnover, however. In Basalt, we have new residents, new demographics. Just look at the council and look at the candidates who are running for council, and you'll see that things are changing, and different people want different things now. So I am also on board with having this go out to the community to vote, so that people can express what small town character means to them. And if it means keeping things the same, then they can vote their hearts in that direction. And if it means, you know, a little bit of progress, and I do think it's a bit ironic that, you know, we're arguing to keep parking, which is, as Angela has pointed out, isn't necessarily the best for health and community, but we want ADA access, and those two things kind of come together hand in hand with this project. So there's a little bit of irony there, but so I also would like to see this go to vote, and allow the public to decide, you know, whether the parking meets their definition of small town. It does for me. I would like to see the sidewalks extended and more activity and more vitality. That's just my personal opinion. And like everybody else has said here, this is a democratic process, and so we will see how the winds blow. And thank you for your time.
Mayor, I move that the town council submit proposed ordinance number 5 series of 2024 to the electors at a special election to be set by town council in accordance with section 5.6 of the town charter.
Second.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. We better do a roll call on this one.
Absolutely. Let us begin with David Knight,
Yes.
Angela Anderson,
Yes.
Elise Hoddle,
Yes.
Ryan Slack,
Yes.
Bill Kane,
Yes.
Dieter Schindler.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I guess to be continued. So, thanks for your work. Ted spent a lot of nights in here with us, and I know your heart's in it, and, you know, we beg to differ, so there we go.
We look forward to the campaign.
Okay, next item. We've got, our next piece is number 7G, public hearing, second reading of ordinance number 3, series of 2024. Ordinance of the Town Council, Town of Basalt, Colorado, approving easement agreements for the Midland Streetscape Project. Catherine and Jeff.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I don't have a lot to add from first reading. Jeff and I have continued to work with the various property owners along Midland to, you know, finalize these easement agreements. I wasn't sure if there's anything Jeff wanted to add to the discussion.
Yeah, I'll just add we're progressing. Some of it is just logistically getting signatures from some people. Some of it is minor tweaks to the easement agreements, as I mentioned at the last meeting. And then, but everyone that is supportive of the project, it's just getting at there's been some kind of fine tuning of design that people want to see. So all's moving forward. And this is second reading on that ordinance. It does provide some authority for me to make some changes to the easement agreement as necessary. All of the changes that we've been discussing are I would describe as very minor changes here or there. So if there's any questions, happy to answer.
Yeah, and I would just, you know, reiterate that we have, you know, this will be it'll be, I think, a total of 13 easements that we've been able to obtain, largely without opposition for property owners all along Midland Avenue. So, you know, it's been great to have the support of those property owners.
Okay, questions? This is a public hearing, so I will ask if there's anyone in the audience that would like to comment on ordinance 3, 2024, easement agreements for the Midland Streetscape project. I do not see a sea of hands out there, and anyone calling in? No, or is that, no? Anybody here likely to be a commenter? No. Okay, so then questions? If none, I'd entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move the town council adopt ordinance number 5, series of, no, it's ordinance number 3, series of 2024 on second reading.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Pam, please call the roll.
All right. Down there, please. Okay, let's begin with Dieter Schindler,
Yes.
David Knight,
Yes.
Angela Anderson,
Yes.
Elise Hoddle.
As I recused myself from the first reading, I will abstain.
Thank you. Okay. Ryan Slack,
Yes.
Bill Kane.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-1. Thank you.
Okay, that carries us to, we have some time reserved for an executive session, so I'm going to need a motion to go into executive session, and we'll have to clear the gallery here.
Before the motion, I'll just add that at the conclusion of the executive session, the meeting will be adjourned. So just for the record, there's not going to be any further public meeting after the executive session.